Um, this is the second part of the two-part sessions today. This one will be presented by Mr. Ladi Judy. He owns a wealth management and financial planning consulting firm. His goal is to achieve individuals, fulfill the individual's goals with respect to their financial needs, with respect to financial planning and wealth management. He specializes both US as well as India. So if some of the items he does is estate planning, trust planning, living trust, and financial planning and insurance. And as you can see on the screen, he helps to achieve true financial security by adding diversification into alternate strategy like structured notes, hedge funds, private credit, private equity, venture capital, NRI. The private wealth advisory team is composed of individuals who are focused on investing and financial planning. He himself has a master's degree as well as a certified financial planner. And we are so fortunate to have him to take his time in this busy time to come and give us a presentation. I mean, some of the people here would know a lot more about him and how great he is, such a giver to the community. Like he genuinely works for the community and put all its effort. It's such a pleasure to work with him. We are really fortunate. I'll let Kailash ji to say a few words and welcoming him.
Thank you, Janaji. Ladiji, thank you. Namaste. Happy New Year. I'm on the road, so I'm not able to put my video up. But and I want to see you. We haven't seen you for some time now with this COVID. But I just want to make sure I don't miss out the opportunity to say thank you and give you a virtual hug for being such a great scout and a person who very generously shares his knowledge, his experience, and his enthusiasm for the community and helping other people in different ways. And this is your fourth year in a row. Hang in there. We're going to keep you going forever. and this year, by the way, you are going to be seen in 8 different countries because our program has done well. We have expanded now, a big program out of Australia, New Zealand, India, South Africa. So you're going to become known to many other people and you deserve it very well, deservedly so, because you built yourself. It's a great practice with so much due diligence and effort over the years. So once again, we thank you and you take good care and appreciate it very much. Okay.
Thank you, Uncle Ji. Happy New Year, and thank you for those kind words. And thank you, Janaji, for your kind words also.
Thank you.
I just want to take a minute to let the class know a couple things. First of all, Ladiji, you and I have shared this session for the last 3 years, and yes, thank you so much. This time, I had a issue getting back from India, so I had to postpone the class by a week, and I totally appreciate and I'm so thankful for your flexibility. It's great that you could adjust. And second, my session to the class was about life transitions, and as part of the life transitions, they now understand that financial implications. Many of the life transitions can have huge financial implications, and that's why the lecture from you following mine session is extremely useful to them to understand. This is going to be an issue for so many of us in so many stages of life. So we thank you, and I'm telling the class to pay 100% attention to all the important things that you're teaching today. So welcome, and happy to be
Thank you
with us. Yeah.
Thank you. Good to be here. I appreciate your time. Thank you.
DG, do you want to share your screen, or you want?
Yeah, that'll be a little bit easier for me, actually. Yeah.
I'll make you as a host. Hang on, give me 1 second. Okay. Okay, go ahead. You can share now.
Okay, all right. Can you guys see it?
Yes.
Okay, good. So my name is Ladi Chuti. I am a certified financial planner, guys. And I am a fiduciary advisor, and I'm 100% independent. That basically means that I'm not employed by any financial institutions like a bank or a brokerage firm. I am a registered investment advisor licensed with the SEC, which is Securities and Exchange Commissions. I currently manage around $140 million for my clients. We build customized portfolios. We have an in-house CPA firm. We do taxes for both India and US and tax planning at the same time. So pretty much, you can tell by the name of the company, it's NRI Wealth Management. That basically, we 100% of the clientele is Indian, and we look at both countries in great depth to see how we can help our community solve their issues when it comes to financial planning in India as well as the US. The biggest challenge we're facing right now is that we are pretty much the last generation that's taking care of parents and kids at the same time. I don't think the next generation is going to do that. And because of that, we have 1 foot in India, 1 foot in the US, assets back home. We have assets in the US. Parents are traveling back and forth. And, a lot of us don't, understand this estate planning issue until something happens to one of the family members. That's when we start to learn about it. And that's when it's pretty bad time, because, some of the consequences are going to be pretty bad if we don't plan properly. So I will talk about, the US component right now. And again, each state is a little bit different, but, when it comes to estate planning, it's pretty universal all across the country. And we'll go into depth about India, not depth, like, some, highlights about India estate planning also. We're being, like, Kailash said, I'm being watched in 8 countries, so we don't know some of the other countries' laws. So we'll just try to focus on the US and some on India, and then we'll go from there. So again, age doesn't really matter when it comes to estate planning. It's more of assets, because if I'm 41 years old, right? So wife, 2 kids, a house, some retirement accounts, life insurances, and brokerage accounts and things like that, right? So as a 41-year-old, my biggest worry is something were to happen to, both parents, who's going to take care of the kids, right? So that's when I'm thinking about estate planning. Somebody who is, 60, 70, 80 years old, their thinking is, how do I give these assets that have, gathered over my lifetime to my next generation in a most, tax efficient manner? So different people have different mindset about estate planning, depending on their age. So as we age, the strategies change also. So whenever we talk about estate planning, the first thing that comes to our mind is, a will, which pretty much everybody knows, right? In India, we're very familiar with the will system, but in the US, you can totally do a will, but, will has its own issues. Everybody needs a will, but the main document that everybody needs, especially when you have, assets which you want to pass on to your next generation, is a revocable living trust. So this is, think of this document as a guide for your next generation or for your spouse in the worst case scenario. So let's assume, there's husband, wife, just for example's sake. Both of them will make one living trust, for example, where it's a joint trust, they call it, husband, wife. So something happens to husband, everything goes to wife. Something happens to wife, everything goes to the husband. If something happens to both of them, then everything should go to your next generation. So you're basically doing all of this to make sure that everything is passed on to your next generation after you have passed on. So if you go through this, the living trust is simply a trust you create while you're alive. So it's a revocable living trust when you're alive, but once you pass on, it becomes irrevocable, because in the trust, you have mentioned your wishes, that this is how you want the trustee to proceed, with your wishes, to give your assets to your next generation, whoever you want to distribute it to. But in husband wife's case, everything goes to the surviving spouse. So you name the beneficiaries in the trust. So again, it's your next generation who's the beneficiary of this document. You could indeed use a will, but will must go through probate process that oversees the transfer of these assets. So if you make a will, which again you need, we'll discuss why you need a will also. The will goes to the probate, which is the court system, right? And from there, it's pretty much public information. There's a thing called probate. That's where, the government makes sure that if you have balances that are due to somebody, if there's any debts you need to pay, that is the time for them to collect all of it before it goes to your next generation. And the probate process is pretty lengthy and it's pretty expensive. Lengthy in the sense that it can take years, depending on where you live, how many people are fighting over your estate, and cost-wise, it can cost, depending on which attorney you talk to, 2-3% of your gross estate. So if you have $1 million home with 800K of loan, that's 2 to 3% of that $1 million. So it's always on gross estate when they talk about fees and things like that. So many people create a irrevocable living trust as a part of their estate plan. These trusts can be modified. And again, it's a revocable trust. That means you can revoke it anytime you want. If you want to make changes to it, you are welcome to do it. Of course, there might be some fees and things that you have to pay, but majority of the people, will make a trust and they'll kind of forget about it, unless people get divorced or there's kids that you don't want them to inherit your assets and things like that. Then there's a challenge, but usually there's really no problems, with making changes and things like that. And when you create it, you are the owner, you are the trustee. So you are the one who's basically managing the trust. Something happens to you, the spouse can be a trustee or they can be a joint trustee also. But again, it doesn't hold that much value as long as you're alive, because you can put things in, take things out anytime you want. But the minute you pass on, that's when the value proposition starts, because that's when your assets are going to go to the next generation and not through the court, because you will decide where your assets should go to. Next slide. Do I need trust? Yeah, I think everybody does. Again, like I mentioned, if you have minor kids, you have assets, they will not inherit your assets until they reach age 18. So if somebody has a 5-year-old child and they have a house, bank accounts and things like that, something happens to them, the kid might not be able to get any of those assets because they have to wait till their age 18. So that's why, you're designing these documents and you're appointing a trustee to distribute the assets to the kids, even though they're minor, for their, to maintain their standard living and things like that. So when you set up a living trust to transfer your property to your loved ones, once after your death, you can potentially, save them a lot of time and hassle and money. And again, time is the probate and money is the fees that, the probate attorney will charge you. Property left through a will rather than a living trust might be tied up for months or even years in probate court and could involve court costs and lawyer fees. But by contract, property left through a trust can be just distributed to your beneficiaries almost immediately and often without a need of an attorney. It will really streamline the process in the worst case scenario. And like I said, if you see, the next column, it's state by state, different states would act differently. But to avoid probate all across the US, you need to make sure your property is in a trust. And a will is also beneficial, but trust is where trust is the main document. And anytime you have assets, let's say over $166,000, or you have real estate over $55,000, you're going to need a living trust. And in California, especially in the Bay, pretty much every person that owns a house will need estate planning. Yeah, so if you make a living trust, do you still need a will? Yes, you do actually, for two main reasons. Number one is in your will, that's where you're going to appoint guardians in case something happens to the parents. So you have to make sure there's proper guardians and they know that they are the guardians of your child in the worst case scenario. That's what, that's where the will comes into picture. And second thing is that, it's very common when people make living trust, they forget to add some of the assets, like they might forget to add a bank account or a locker or a brokerage account. So will help you with that also. So whatever you don't add in your trust, you have a will to back it up. So you will need a will, trust, power of attorney, healthcare power of attorney, and HIPAA. These are basically the 5 documents that everybody will need. And when you contact any attorney out there, and again, you don't necessarily need an attorney, in my opinion, because all of these estate planning is template based. So there's a software out there that these attorneys will buy, and they will just plug in your information along with your wishes, and they print it out and they give it to you. I personally feel like after seeing and reading so many different trusts for my clients, I feel like it's you can go online, LegalZoom or any other company out there. There's so many companies that provide you software, so you can go through them. Or if you are employed by, if your employer has a legal plan such as Hyatt Legal or ARAG, if you subscribe to that, you should be able to get the estate planning done through one of the attorneys. They cover most of the fees anyways. So how do I make a living trust? To make a living trust, you choose whether to make an individual or a shared trust. So in this case, single person will do individual trust. And if you're married, you will do a shared trust. Decide which property needs to be included in the trust. Choose a successor trustee. So successor trustees, like for example, for me and my wife, and we'll put, let's say, my brother-in-law, or sister-in-law, whoever, as a successor trustee if something were to happen to both husband and wife. And you want to decide who will be the beneficiaries of this trust, and what age and when the assets will be distributed. And again, when kids are minors, it's a pretty big headache. And as the age, so if you're like 60 years old and your kids are in their 30s, so then it doesn't really, it's not that big of a deal when you're planning or when you're doing the living trust, because the kids are old enough, they're responsible, they're educated, so you don't have to worry about distributing the assets. When the kids are minors, you can find a extended family member to be a trustee. But once kids reach certain age, in my opinion, once they're educated, married, have their own kids, they have responsibilities. At that time, you can appoint them as trustees of your trust also, and they are also the beneficiaries of that trust. So that's how a lot of people do it, because there's so many people in this country, in the US, especially in this area on H1, and they don't have a lot of family members that live in the area or even in the country. In that case, they'll put their best friends as a trustee, and then they'll put their family from India as a co-trustee, which is very much possible also. So you can have more than one trustee. Like back in the day when you watch Indian movies, right? One trustee is signing the checks, and people don't, and the beneficiaries have no idea where the money is going. In this case, you can say, I will have 2 trustees or 3 trustees, and everybody have to agree on what goes out from the trust. All the signatures are required and things like that. So you can design this thing any way you want. So it's basically your wishes, and nobody's going to stop you how you want to distribute your net worth or your assets to whoever you want. And again, revocable as long as you're alive. The minute you pass on, it becomes irrevocable, basically set in stone after that. And you need to get it notarized and things like that, which I think it's pretty simple. And again, attorney will help you with all of that. Or if you have LegalZoom or something, they will be able to help you. And these are some of the documents that you need. So when you actually, you get a binder, pretty thick binder, and these are the documents you will see: the formation of the trust documents, appointment of fiduciaries, uniform statutory form, power of attorney, trust summary, HIPAA, trust transfer deeds, the advanced healthcare directive, and assignment of property. So it's pretty, it's not complicated to do all of this or to learn about this. I feel like it's more emotional than anything else. And a lot of people, don't want to think about death. And, it's pretty sad And a lot of people don't do this just because of that reason. And we have seen very bad cases in the past. And I really feel like that if you are eligible to do this because of your net worth or kids and things like that, we should definitely take a look at this. And again, a little bit more advanced planning. Can living trust reduce estate taxes? Estate taxes are basically what the government will take if your net worth exceeds a certain threshold. For this year, it's $12 million per spouse. So husband, wife, around $24 million is what the limit is. So anything over $24 million that you leave your next generation with will be taxed at around 40 to 50%, depending which state you live in. There's federal estate taxes and there's state estate taxes. And some of the states like California, they don't have state estate taxes. So STATE, which is state of California, estate as ESTATE. But there's states out there like if you live in state of Washington, they have a state taxes. I believe New Jersey has a state tax. So there's a lot of states out there that will have these taxes. But if you're fortunate enough to have more than $24 million in assets, you should do advanced planning. A lot of advanced planning you actually need to do because you can actually design your estate in a way where you can avoid paying these taxes, not only for yourself, but for your next generation also. These limits of 12 million, they're set to expire in 2025. It might even expire this year. We really don't know because, once they sign the new tax bill, who knows what's going to be in it. But everybody's very hopeful that this will stay till 2025. And after that, it's supposed to revert back to around $5 million per person. So if you're around $10 million of net worth right now, and it's going to grow moving forward, you should probably start looking at advanced estate planning as well. So basic strategies, this is more advanced. I don't think we can cover it if you guys want, but if you want to go through it, we definitely can. But guys, try to, put yourself in the picture when you're explaining it to others. Think of yourself, the husband, wife, these properties. How will the next generation get it? How will my kids get it? The tax implications and things like that. So it's not that complicated. Again, people don't want to learn about it, but I want you guys to at least understand the basics where you can, guide them to the right direction or in the right direction. So questions, guys? Let me go through the chat real quick. So first question, can an individual brokerage account be moved to a trust with profit and losses? Does the capital gain losses move to the trust also besides the positions, of course? So there's no different tax ID number for your trust. It's your social number that's being used. So when you put an asset in your trust, so let's go over some of the assets that should be in a trust. Anything that you cannot physically move, you will have to put it in a trust. So when you go to when you're doing your estate planning, the attorney will change the deed. So instead of you owning the home that you stay in, the trust is the owner of that house and you own the trust. If you have an investment property, same thing. If you have an LLC, you will have the trust own that LLC for the property. Your brokerage accounts, will be owned by the trust. And there's no difference in you owning or the trust owning. The taxation is going to be exactly the same. Your retirement accounts should not be owned by the trust. Keep that in mind, because when you change ownership of your retirement accounts, it's a taxable event. So your spouse is a primary beneficiary on your retirement account, and your kids can be a contingent beneficiary, or you can make the trust as a contingent beneficiary of your retirement accounts. Your life insurance, is not owned by the trust, it's owned by you, and the trust or your kids can be the beneficiaries of that life insurance. So all the brokerage accounts, ESPPs, RSUs, stock options, your brokerage accounts, your home can be part of the trust. So whatever, like your car, your jewelry, whatever you cannot move to the trust, so automatically it'll be part of the trust because that's movable property which you can physically move. What are the tax impacts on the trust? How is it taxed? So it's taxed on your own tax bracket. So there's no special, EIN numbers or any social numbers for that. Estate planning versus living trust. Can't you distinguish, please? Is estate planning an umbrella term? What else is estate planning other than probably a living trust? Often you how many together. So if somebody's worth, I don't know, $50,000, for example, they can just do the will. There's no issues at all, right? But if somebody who, when somebody says estate planning, one person can go online and spend $50 to make a will. Another person will go online and spend, I don't know, $500 to do a living trust and a will and power of attorney, healthcare power of attorney, HIPAA and things like that. Somebody whose company just went public, they're worth $100 million. It might cost them $30,000 to do estate planning because they will have to do, irrevocable life insurance trust. They will have to do irrevocable trust for their kids. They have to do generation skipping trust. They might have to do charitable trust. They have to do, granted retained annuity trust. And there's so many different trusts out there. But for average person, to avoid the probate, you basically need a revocable living trust. Irrevocable trust that individuals do, that's not done until you reach certain amount of wealth because you cannot take that money back. It's a one-way street. What is the tax when it's less than 24 million? There's no tax. It goes directly to your kids without any taxes, zero taxes. Again, that's for state of California. For state of Washington, it is very different. For New Jersey, it's going to be different. So it's state by state when it comes to estate planning. But for California, there's no estate taxes at all. They only comply with the federal laws for when it comes to that. That's it could be after taxing. Okay, so the assets could be after tax and before tax in the trust. How does that work for a child to get the money if the parents are gone? So, guys, there's a thing called step up in basis. So if your house is worth $1 million, but you purchased it for $500,000, if you sell, you might have taxes that are due because you paid $500,000 for the house. But if you pass on, when it goes to your kids, you get a step up in basis. So their basis for the property will be $1 million. So if they were to sell it for $1 million, there's no taxes. So anything over $1 million, when they get it, they will have to pay taxes. But for things like 401ks, which are pre-tax, it goes into their retirement accounts. And when they take a withdrawal, they will have to pay taxes at their own tax bracket. Irrevocable trust protects against all lawsuits. It does, but there's a look back period. So you cannot say, oh man, I just hit somebody yesterday and today I will put all of my assets in irrevocable trust. It will not work like that because there's a 3-year look back period on your estate planning for irrevocable stuff. So if you buy a life insurance, you put it in a trust. Right? So you owned a life insurance, you purchased it 6 months ago, then you open up a trust, you transfer the life insurance in a trust, something happens to you, it will come back to your estate because of the 3-year look back. If you purchase a life insurance inside the trust, you didn't transfer, but you purchased it inside the trust, then it's going to be tax-free. So again, there's situation by situation, it can get pretty complicated also, but for most individuals, anything less than 24 million is pretty straightforward. Yeah, so we were told to have a FEIN for our trust. You mentioned you do not need this. You don't need a EIN number for your trust because that's, you own it. It's a revocable trust. Everything will come under your name. Is it best to have your home to be owned by the trust? Yes, it is actually, because if you don't, you kind of defeated the purpose of revocable living trust. Now the home will have to go through probate, guys. How does it work for investment property in the estate planning? So you can have your trust own your investment properties. You know, sometimes when we have to refi the property, the loan agent will take out the property from the trust, and that's when we get a refi a mortgage, and then later on they'll put it back inside the trust. Some people have LLCs that own these properties, and that LLC will be owned by your revocable living trust. No creditor protection whatsoever, guys. This is strictly to avoid probate, so your kids do not have to go to the court. And again, nothing to do with taxes, strictly for a smooth process of assets from one generation to another. Okay. So California, no tax for living trust. Should the kids also be in California, or just the living trust be drawn in California for the tax-free living trust after the death of the parent? So when you give your assets to your kids, right, there's no estate taxes. Those are called death taxes over 24 million. So there's no less than 24 million, no death taxes. So if you have $5 million that are your assets, goes to your trust, now it goes to your kids after you. When they take it out, right, there's really no taxes. It's only the growth that they're going to pay taxes on. They will pay state and federal taxes on the growth of those assets. So if the trust is from California, they move to Seattle, right? So Seattle doesn't have, so state of Washington doesn't have income taxes, right? So when they take it out from the trust, there will be no income taxes on the income. So I think there's a confusion about income taxes and estate taxes. Income taxes is what you're earning from your banks and other investments, right? Or your earned income. Estate is strictly death taxes. We have someone in India. What is the best way to get it back to the US? Buy property in India? So when we say we have money in India, so is it in CDs? Is it in regular bank accounts? Is it in mutual funds? Where is it? So if it's in a bank account, and if it's in a bank account or a mutual fund account or a provident fund or any investment, or other than a property, for example, anything greater than 10,000, you have to declare to Uncle Sam. You have to do FBAR form, which is a foreign bank account disclosure form. And you can bring it back. I think these days, we can earn, depending on the investment and no connection to the stock market here, you can earn between 6 to 8 or 9% rate of return in some of your fixed income accounts also. So I'm not a big fan of keeping money in India. The reason for that is, inflation's pretty high currency risk, and you have to pay taxes on it anyway. So even if you get 6% rate of return, you have currency fluctuation, and then you have to pay taxes on that. And when you bring it to the US, there's some currency fees also, right? You might not get the same rate that you sent it at. So I think US is a much better place to invest your money, in my opinion. What are the questions, guys? Yeah, so when they live in state of Washington, for example, and you are in California, it's your residency because you are paying estate taxes. Your kids are not paying that. So if you reside in California, right, you comply with California laws, and the owners, which are you, husband, wife, are responsible for the taxes, not your kids. So if even if they live in another state, it should not matter. Implications of purchasing property in India is a smart strategy. You know, Nish, I think it's a simple question right now, but you should be asking yourself one question: that would you, first of all, can you buy it all white? White in a sense, there's a lot of transactions in India where, if the property is worth 1 crore and they say, you will take, 50 lakhs, by check, and another 50 lakhs you have to pay cash, right? So if you're buying all with a check, make sure you can sell it all with a check also. So no cash at all. Second thing, are your kids capable of managing that property if something happens to you guys? Right? If the answer is yes, and your kid says, you know what, we would like to have a property in India, we don't mind, we'll manage it, then I think it makes sense. But the way things are going, I don't think a lot of kids are capable of managing assets overseas. And that will create an issue. So like, I am Punjabi, we started coming to the US in 1950s and 1960s. People don't go back that often because, parents are gone, other gone also, or majority of my family is in US, England, and Canada. And, I will never purchase anything in India because it's going to be a disaster, because I won't be able to sell it at a price that I want, or, check versus cash and all of that. So I think there's a lot of Punjabi people are asset rich, cash poor, because they own so much farmland back in India. They're not able to sell it because the cash component is so big, they won't be able to bring it to the US. And you don't want to be in that situation. And again, talk to your next generation to see whether, they can handle a property. And if you're buying something short term, just for investment's sake, you think, it's going to go up within the next few years, then it's a different story. But long term, always, take opinion of your next generation also. What else, guys? Good questions, by the way.
Digi, should we expand on HIPAA and also on the advanced healthcare directives, or was it already addressed?
No. So yes, so I can address this. That's not an issue. Not an issue. I mean, so HIPAA is basically, when somebody is like a family member have access to your records and things like that, right? And usually, when you go to the hospital, you can get these things done, or you can, as you age, and again, as you age, these things come into picture more and more, right? So HIPAA is pretty standard. You can get it online, or I think if you talk to your doctor, they should have a copy also. And then you have the healthcare power of attorney. So when you go into a surgery, they'll make you sign one that if you go into a coma during the surgery, who has a say whether to pull the plug or not, how long they should keep you on life support in the worst case scenario. So they're pretty, I think they're very easily accessible forms. And when you're doing your estate planning, it's just part of the package. I remember when estate planning, and my wife is a nurse. I did the trust, the healthcare power of attorneys and all of that. And, me and my wife, we were going over everything in detail. And she said, there's certain things in there that we mentioned that we should not, because of our age. If we're 80 years old or 90 years old, then we can say if somebody goes into coma for a month or 2 months, pull the plug. And they're saying, and she's saying when you're young, there's a higher chance of you recovering from an illness versus if you're old. So, you can modify these documents as you age anyways. And I think people should do it. But again, when we go for surgeries and things like that, you can make changes at that time. What else, guys? How about the investment of parents in India? When parents are gone, what is the best way to bring the money, considering it's hard to manage from the US? Very good question. The first thing is parents should definitely have a will. It will make things very easy for you. In India, a lot of people probably don't comply with some of these laws because you live in the house, you're in India, you can go back to the court and things like that. But when you live in the US, handling these affairs in India can be very, very difficult. And I unfortunately learned it, in a hard way. My father passed away in 2007, all of a sudden, and I took his ashes and I'm only child, so I took his ashes to India. And I think we were gone for like 6, 7 days. And when I got to my Gaon, I was notified by my uncle saying that, we have a problem because, the well connections were on my dad's name. And the farm that has water doesn't have a connection. So we have to move from, 2 farms right next to each other. So one has water, but no connection. The other one has a connection, but no water. Just to move that, to get the authorization and all of that, I was in the court majority of the time. And it was a very bad experience because you're in the grieving process and that's the last thing that you need. And that's when I realized that, our community really needs to understand these things. And parents should do proper documentation. Parents should tell you exactly where these assets are. And to bring up, and again, there's 2 different laws or 2 different countries that you guys are going to be dealing with. India has its own laws. India doesn't have a state taxes. US might have some, US have a state taxes. And, when your parents pass on, India doesn't give you step up in basis. US will give you step up in basis, for example. So if your parents have no connection to the US, for example, you can bring the money back to the US. You're allowed to bring around $1 million a year when you start disposing these assets. So it's not really that big of a problem. Again, living in the US or overseas, if the documentation is not properly done, it can cause issues. That's for sure. How to get money from India after selling the property? Wouldn't it be easy if you don't have that? So, you're an NRI living in the US, right? Inheritance laws are different because if you inherit a property, you can sell a property and then you can pay your taxes at that time, and then you can bring the money back. When you bring it to the US does not charge you any taxes at all. You can, again, the beneficiaries don't pay taxes. So me giving, 50 million to my next generation, they're not really paying taxes. I am paying taxes from my estate. But when it comes from, when the money comes from overseas, so some, parents in India or parents from India can send you unlimited amount of money to the US, you will have tax documents or tax forms that you need to fill to inform the government that you have gotten some money from overseas, but there are no taxes at all. They have to, in India, they have to comply with the RBI rules on how much money they can send to the US. But on the receiving end, it's unlimited. Oh, sorry. So yeah, send the questions to everybody, guys, rather than only me, so it's easy to read. What else, guys?
Ladiji, while they are thinking about questions, so if they sell the house in India, they do have to pay tax in India, capital gain tax, and then they bring the money back here. I mean, possibly they'll get a credit for the tax paid, but they do have to pay tax in India, right? On the sale
So,
of, even
yes.
though they are a citizen, even though they are a citizen of US, they would go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah, Jenny, very good question. Yeah. So, India has inflation schedule. So that means when property value goes up, they don't charge you taxes on certain amount of growth. So let me explain you US first, then I'll explain India. So if you buy a property for $500,000, at the time of death, it's worth $1.5 million. If the beneficiaries of your kids, they sell the property for 1.5 million and you purchased it for $500,000, they will owe zero taxes because they got to step up in basis. In India, you do not get step up in basis. So there will be taxes that are due in India, right? But US, there will be no taxes. And to avoid some taxes, you can do some of the government bonds and things like that. But again, it's situation by situation. And if somebody is in that, in that situation, they can definitely let us know. We can help them. We can at least guide them properly so they can talk to attorneys in India and things like that. But taxation wise, the planning component, we can totally do it in-house. Okay. Rita ji, if you bought a property in India, when you say, do you think I should not register? I mean, you got to register the property, right? Sooner or later, whose name is it going to be on? So some people, what they would do is they will register the property to their parents who are living in India. So this way they own the property and they can sell it and they can send you the money to the US. That's actually the most efficient way to do it. Rather than you owning the property directly, it can be owned by your family member as long as they're capable of managing those assets and they can sell it and send you the money. But it will have to be registered somewhere.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to go in the India. But since now I'm listening to you, it's kind of very scary. I don't have a parents, right? So I cannot do on the parents' name. And my brother, I don't think he can able to do that because they have their own business. So they don't want to do it anything on their name. So I think it's better to sell it out the way you are telling all this consequence. It seems like we should not.
Okay, I have been doing this since 2003. I do not know of a single Punjabi person who have successfully sold their assets in India yet.
Really? Oh.
I have nobody in my family who has successfully done it. Nobody. The reason for that is the cash component is too big, right? When you see a Punjabi person driving a taxi, he might have 50 acres in Punjab that are worth maybe $2 million. So asset rich, cash poor. It's just the nature of the game, and people don't like to sell. Selling property is very difficult for Indians as a whole. Farmland is crazy emotional, right? But again, if the next generation is capable of handling all of this, then there's nothing like it. But I feel like, I don't think the next generation is going to be that interested in some of these assets.
You are absolutely right. And for me, since you live here, like you said, 30, 40 years, and I thought like, penthouse is so excited and bought it. And then now we never used it in last 5 years. And because of COVID and everything, we could not register. And we try to sell and they says, oh, nobody likes the penthouse. It's too high.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
It is tough. It's very difficult. I think these people do get stuck in some of these assets, and it's very difficult to sell because it's again, I think most of us will realize this as we're aging, and when kids are little, you can drag them to India, and then dhire dhire, they go to college and they have their own life, they get married, and if they get married in the US, then I think there's a higher chance of them losing a connection to India, right? They'll probably say, oh, why go to India? Why go to Goa when I can go to Cancun?
I agree. Yeah. Thank
Yeah, it's
you.
going to be tough.
It's wonderful information, by the way. It's
Thank you.
very eye-opening, Thank
It
you.
is. It's
Appreciate
so, it's one of the most emotional topics out there.
Yes.
And I
exactly.
think when we think of our parents, thinking of them passing on, and then you think of yourself passing on, and how the kid's going to handle all this. It's tough. It's not easy. One of the
No.
most difficult conversations that we get to have with our clients.
Yeah. And especially like my husband doesn't like to talk about it. He says, oh, you know what? Don't talk about it. Whatever you want to do it, do it. But he's like, maybe he's scared of the death and, planning all those things. He says, oh, you do whatever after I die, do whatever you want to do. So you're right. It's very tough, very tough.
People don't want to. And other issue that we're facing is, Indian parents, like that, our parents, they're very, a lot of them are very private about the things that they own, the CDs, the life insurance policies, this and that, right? And it's hard to figure out all of these things later on. So if you have parents who have these assets, they're aging, I think it's a tough conversation to have with them, actually. Then they're going to say, yo, you're just waiting for me to die. Why are you asking, right? But
right.
it can be a very big mess.
Right, absolutely.
Okay,
I don't want to take anything.
Yeah. So next question, really difficult to sell property in India. Yeah, it is not easy, that's for sure. You can actually, Geeta, you can see if you can give a power of attorney. I think for power of attorney from the US, you have to send it to Sacramento, and then you have to send it to the consulate also. And those people can sell on your behalf. So it's doable. We have people who have done that in the past. Please provide some tax saving strategies that we can use in the US. Oh boy. The number one question that gets asked all the time. The 401k is one thing that everybody should be doing. Second thing is when you're in W-2 employed by a company, if you are at a pretty decent position, meaning that if you are at director level above and you work for one of these Fortune 100 companies like Apple, Google's, all of these, they have a plan called a non-qualified deferred compensation plan. So 401ks are qualified deferred compensation plan. So what that means is that they cannot discriminate. They basically have to give it to everybody who's eligible. Non-qualified means they can pick and choose who are they going to give the plan to. So take a look at it. Nobody's going to tell you until you ask, because when you make a contribution to a non-qualified deferred comp, the company does not get a deduction on the salary that's given to you. So that's why it's not heavily advertised. But again, directors and above for a lot of the big companies are eligible for that plan. I think you should definitely use it. Second thing is, this is only last year we used one of the strategies for the charitable donation that we did for, it was one of the mineral funds that we ended up going with. Usme kya tha ki you could actually, whatever you put in, you would get 4 times the deduction. So if you put in $1, you'll get up to $4 of deduction from your taxable income. So if anybody is making over $650,000, the reason I say is that's when it's worth doing it. If you're making 200,000, it's not worth doing some of these strategies. So if you are making over $650,000, then you can give us a call and we can definitely help you with some of these strategies. Okay. So please explain more about giving power of attorney to consulate. So you're not giving it to consulate because they have to verify it's you. So you know, if you want to give a power of attorney over here, you can just sign it and get it notarized, right? So in India, to send it to India from here, there's a two-step process. One is that you will have to, you have to send it, they call it a postal seal, which is done from Sacramento. There's a lot of people around the area that will do that for you if you don't want to go to Sacramento. Then it has to be sent to the Indian consulate. They basically have to verify you are the right person, and then you can send that to India. Yes, Rita ji.
Yes, how about the Roth IRS? Because I found out sometimes, you are still working after 67 or something, but then you have to 401k, you have to withdraw some money and then you are earning. So you have to pay very high taxes because it's very difficult. In the beginning, you are like in the lower, but as you grow higher and higher, then it's a big chunk. You are paying like, after 100, you pay like $30,000-$40,000 tax. So the Roth IRS is better or not?
No, I personally like pre-tax accounts rather than the after-tax accounts. The reason for that is, if somebody says, do you want to put $20,000 a year in a regular 401k versus a Roth 401k? I want to do regular because I want to save taxes today. So dollar in my hand is worth today, then it'll be worth 30 years from now. Number two, I'm not paying Uncle Sam right now. So I'm using their money to invest and pay them back 20, 30, 40 years later. And, the laws will change this year. If they do not change, log into your 401k, go to the contributions page of your 401k, where you decide, how much should I contribute to my 401k this year, right? And you should see pre-tax, Roth, and hopefully after-tax 401k. Rita, which company are you working with?
No, I'm retired right now.
Okay. So everybody who else is working, if you go to
my husband is working. My husband is working.
Okay.
So
which company is he with?
He's pen manufacturing.
Okay. So see if they have after-tax 401k, because that after-tax 401k gets converted to Roth. In some of the cases, you can actually put around $30,000 a year in your after-tax 401k, and it immediately gets converted to Roth. Yeah. Okay. Call me if you have my number. Just give me a call and I'll walk you through. And guys, everybody that's, is on the presentation, please, you guys have my number. Feel free to call me, guys.
Oh, thank you so much.
Yeah. So I know, it's just the amount of time and everybody has a different situation. I'm not going to charge any one of you guys. So please.
Oh, thank you. That is so lovely.
There'll be wealth of information. Yeah. I'm telling you, there's so much out there that people need to learn. And please, please, please just give me a call. And so Rita, sorry, 1 second. Rita, just hold on, guys. So, when we talk about, what you're talking about, actually the mandatory withdrawals from your 401k.
Yes.
Required minimum distributions of around 3% of your total 401k. They have moved it to 72 now instead of 70. Number one. Number two, you're only required to take around 3.5% of your total by law. You can take more, but requirement is by law. They say enough is enough. You need to start taking out at age 72 around 3.5%.
Oh, okay. This year it started 72 years.
Last year started 72. But keep in mind that you are going to be in a lower tax bracket for the retirement accounts. You know why? because you have already paid the Social Security taxes on that money. So earning $100,000 from your job and taking 100K of distributions from your retirement account, it's going to be taxed differently. Retirement account is going to be taxed at a lower tax bracket because you've already paid FICA and FUTA taxes.
Okay.
Yeah. But if you take it in segments, I think you can still be in a lower tax bracket, in my opinion. But again, if you need help, just give me a call. I'll look it over, and then we can tell you how much you should take out.
Sure. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Nisha had her hand up.
Anji, I can see it.
Yeah.
Hanji, I actually have two questions for you.
Hanji.
One is, what do you think of a strategy, the gift that you can give to your children, and using that to create a Roth IRA for your kids and contributing to their Roth IRA? I think it's 6,000 or something.
They have to have earned income.
No, but I mean, we can use the gift tax to.
I know.
You can't do it that way?
No. How old are the kids?
They're in their 20s.
Okay, all right. So you can give them the $16,000, but they might or might not qualify for the Roth. You cannot do it on their behalf.
Oh, that's what I did. Okay.
So what if they're earning, let's say, are they married or single?
They're single.
So what if they're earning, let's say, $150,000 plus? They might not be eligible for a Roth.
I already did it. Okay, so next time I won't do it.
Yeah,
So
just take a look at it. Yeah.
अच्छा, मेरा एक और question है कि you acquire a lot of gold, from wherever. So
Yeah.
उसके साथ क्या? What do you suggest? Because I mean, my kids are not interested in it. So what do you suggest doing with it? I mean, some of it, of course, you keep as a memory or whatever, but a lot, when you just have accumulated so much and nobody is really interested in wearing it or anything, what do you suggest?
Oh boy, I think that's more of an emotional question.
I mean, what do you think? Because in the future generations, nobody's really going to wear all this clunky jewelry and everything.
I think I have met one couple in the past. What they did was they basically, they got it melted professionally, and then they basically turned into some of the biscuits, and the kids are holding those in the safe.
Oh, okay. Thank you. A really good presentation. Very helpful.
I really appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Ratnaji, your turn.
My question is, namaste.
Namaskar.
Yeah, it's related to the previous question. If our kids are working and they are in college, so making like small amount of money, you said $6,000 can go towards Roth, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Do they need to get their income information before we put it into Roth, or as a parent, I can just go ahead and put it there?
No, they have to have earned income, first of all. So if they have a summer job earning $7,000, $8,000, whatever it is, right? You can give them the money to put it in Roth. You just cannot, you should not just put it in, give them the money and then let them put it in. Government doesn't really care where the money is coming from, as long as they're eligible to do it.
Okay. And I was reading it somewhere for putting it in Roth, it has to be in the form of cash. Is that true?
It has to be in form of a check.
Check or, okay.
No, you cannot really move any stocks to it. It has to be, because you're making a new contribution.
Okay, got it.
So you will send a check to the company. Let's take your brokerage from like TD, Fidelity, Schwab, whoever.
Okay.
Yeah.
And the second question, again, it is in the same line as the previous question from Mr. G. You were talking about gift tax.
Yes.
I'm sorry, gift amount to the kids. Like, what exactly is that? Can it be like an amount every year, or it should? Yeah.
Okay. So up to $16,000, nobody's going to bother you. So you can literally stand outside of your house with a checkbook, and every person, jo ja raha hai, you can write a check for $16,000 to them. and nobody's going to come after you.
Mm.
They don't have to pay taxes on the gift. You have already paid taxes on the 16,000 because it's coming from your savings or checking. The gift, the 16,000 gift basically is really beneficial for individuals that are worth over 24 million today,
Makes sense.
right? Because they cannot really give any more legally, right? If they give a gift, so let's say I am worth $50 million and the gift and estate exemption. So it used to be, Kibi, while you're alive, you can only give up to a certain amount. You cannot do it more than that. But when you die, you can give a bigger amount. For example, 20 years ago, they said you can only give away $1 million plus 15,000 or 10,000 a year, which is the annual gift. But if you die, you can give $3 million. But now, many years ago, they made the gift and the estate the same amount. So you can give 24 million today if you're worth that much, or you can give 24 million tomorrow if you were to pass on tomorrow. So it's the same limit. So we have clients who have maxed out the 24 million. They said, we will put it in stocks and things like that for our kids and let the money grow. So they don't have to worry about, holding themselves, and that 24 becomes 50 million. And then they have to give 50 and kids have to pay taxes, right? So they have taken 24 and say, kids, here out of our estate. They put an irrevocable trust for the kids. Jo bhi growth aayegi, it's out of the parents' estate, right? And the kids have to pay taxes and all of that on the growth. 24 million, kids don't pay any taxes because they're receiving the gift, there's no taxes. But then they say, you know what? We still have a lot of money sitting around. We still want to give it to our kids. How should we do it? So they can, on annual basis, they can give, $16,000 each at that point.
Okay.
Right? So that's where the 16,000 is pretty beneficial. So if average person has never given that much money to the kids, so even if they give $5 million to one kid, 16,000 doesn't apply because it's still part of your 24 million husband and wife, right? So there's some strategies that only make sense when you're worth X amount of money. Yeah.
Makes sense. Yeah. And is this so? As a kid can receive only up to $16,000.
Kids can receive unlimited amount. So in US, person that's giving the gift. So you giving money to your kids, you are responsible for the taxes. They can receive unlimited amount, no taxes are due from their side.
Oh, okay. So grandparents can give and parents can give and still.
And India is opposite.
Mm.
Yeah. So India is totally opposite to the US rule.
Mm.
Yeah.
Maybe in India, givers are more. So.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Very informative.
The gifts can be given to kids only as checks. No, you can give them cash as long as, if they ever audited. Oh, you can give them stock also, by the way. I think that's what you're referring to. There's people out there, what they will do is, they will move some stock to the kid's name, and kids will pay taxes. Maybe they're a much lower tax bracket than the parents. For example, somebody says, I have, $2 million of NVIDIA. My kids are, 21 years of age. Let me move a portion of NVIDIA to my kids and let them pay taxes at a lower tax bracket. Because they might say, if we make $1 million and we're in 50% tax bracket, the kid might only be in 30% tax bracket. Or maybe the kid is living in state of Washington where there's no state taxes. So again, situation by situation, we have to look at it, but there's different ways that you can do this. What else, guys?
I have a question. Hopefully it's my last one. So sorry about that.
No problem, no problem.
Ajay, I wanted to create a scenario for you. You leave money to your kids, okay? And your kids get married, or unka unfortunately divorce ho jata hai. So because California, especially California, being a community state, the spouse of your child gets the assets that are your family inheritance or whatever. So how do you alleviate that? I mean, how can you leave it to the next generation, to your grandkids, or specify that it's for education purposes or something? I mean, I hate to, you keep on talking about leave this much amount, that much amount for your kids. I don't want to do that. I want them to work themselves, you know. I don't want to give them easy money like this. So how do you create a situation, or I would rather give it to a charitable organization. I mean, how do you sort of think that process through?
You know what you can do actually. So this is done by pretty wealthy individuals, you know, like Rockefellers, right? You've heard of Rockefellers, right?
Right.
So they have formed like a 200-year-old trust where lifespan is like 200 years. And all the generations they only have access to the growth. Nobody can really tap into the amount that was put in. So if they put in, let's say $100 million and it's earning 10%, so the next generations have access to the 10 million each year.
तो ये कैसे set up करते हैं?
So it's you can actually, so you can open up an irrevocable trust or generation skipping trust, where one generation can only touch the growth. So
you specify it within the trust?
Yeah. So there's so many different trusts that you can open. So call me after tomorrow, or tomorrow Sunday, I mean Monday, sorry. Call me next week anytime. And let me understand exactly what you're trying to accomplish. Then I'll tell you whether it makes sense or not.
Okay, thank you.
You're most welcome. Yeah, we do this a lot for our clients, but it gets very weird.
No, but you're talking about leaving, lots and lots of money, where I'm trying to say, hey, I don't want to leave so much money.
Absolutely.
Money is horrible. Like, money is a horrible thing. So, in some way you have to also protect them from.
I have a client where we recently did the planning for them, where, even during the divorces and all of it, nobody can touch the trust.
Yeah.
That's a number one concern, actually. If you look at especially the way things are going right now, everybody's concerned about that. And there's ways you can accomplish what you're trying to do right now.
Okay, thank you.
You're most welcome, G. What else, guys? Yeah, so I will find so estate planning about US, I'll send you some of the website, guys. Janaji, I'll email you some of the links so you can pass it on, and I'll send you some about India as well.
Sure, yeah. One thing I want to stress on is the advanced healthcare directive.
Yes.
That will really help the doctors. Like, say you are in ER, they don't know what to give you or not. Also for the kids to make a decision about their parents. Between the sibling, we get into fight. One want to have the mother alive, the other one don't want to have her alive because she's suffering. So if she had an advanced healthcare, then we just go by it. So there is no friction between the kids.
Oh yeah. So it's it's pretty easy to create these documents. Actually, it's very, very easy. There's a California-based company called Nolo, Nolo. If you go to their website, you can find something like it's super cheap to do it, or it's not a very difficult document to get a hold of, to be honest with you. And again, everybody should have it. And when somebody is doing proper estate planning by themselves or through an attorney, this is part of the estate plan anyways. And if somebody wants, maybe I can find I'm writing this down, so I'll send you maybe a link or something also if somebody wants to do that only by itself. Attorney for healthcare.
Thanks, Manglaji. Yeah, I was wondering if it was covered. Then that's fine.
Nolo. So I will type in I'm going to type in my cell number, guys, so you guys can call me if needed.
I just have a quick question, if I may, please.
Yes, please.
Let's say I'm drawing a scenario in the case of with the pandemic, you're hearing some parents are dying, children's leaving behind, or if a house burned down and the kids are there, they are adults in that case, or even if it's minor, and the parents didn't get the opportunity to either make a will or do anything with their business, what happens then normally in that case?
It gets very sticky at that point, actually. What happens is the court will decide, or some family members will have to fight for the guardianship of the child, because they have to make sure the person that's going to be a guardian, they have the resources to take care of the kid. And you can appoint foreign guardians, but if you have no documentation appointing your family members in India as your kids' guardians, in the worst case scenario, they will literally have to come to the US and fight for the guardianship. And the court wants to make sure that they have the resources overseas to make sure the kid, can maintain the standard living. So it's very, very sticky. And for your assets, it goes into a trust, which kids do not have access to anything until the age 18.
So in the case of the children are adults.
If they are adults, then it will go to the probate.
Okay, thank
So
you.
then it goes to the court, and then the court, your kids are saying, yeah, parents, because keep in mind, we are thinking from one point of view, right? Which is that, majority Indians are married, and husband, wife, and kids. If you look at US as a whole, there's multiple marriages, multiple kids, right? So everybody's going to be standing in the line if you don't have documents. So that's why it gets very sticky, and that's why it lasts for so long in the court, because everybody's fighting over the estate. There could be 3 wives and there could be 7 different kids from different marriages. That's why you have to take all that in consideration and then see that's how the laws are made. Mahalakshmi ji, your question.
Namaste. Ladiji, I just have a comment to say that such an eye-opening presentation. You did such a great job, such compassionate answers to all our questions. I do have a living trust, although our assets are very low. Somebody like you advised that no matter what, it's the best that we can do for our children. But it was one of our checklists. We just checked it, did it, got through the paperwork. But there are some things I think I'd like to go and revisit. Thanks to your presentation.
Thank you very much. I appreciate. Thank you. And again, guys, there's, I'm very passionate about my work. Actually, this is what I only know this. I don't know anything else. And please, if you need help, somebody else needs help, just give me a call. And it's not to get clients. We have enough clients. I manage $140 million. So it's not that. It's somebody donates money, somebody does something, I donate and I educate people that call me. That's my way of giving back. I'm being serious about it. Otherwise, I would not share my cell number with you guys.
If I may humbly say so, it shows through every little word you have said in this. And we have in our lifespan seen people who talk about these, and it's such a different presentation, and your passion really shows through, if I may say so humbly.
I appreciate
everything you say, the way you take time to answer our questions. So yeah, we will bother you if there's a need to. Without
absolutely. Thank you.
If I may, please, Jody, I just have another question, if I may, please.
Please.
What happens in the cases, let's say if you leave inheritance, whether it's money value or assets to your children, and as you indicated earlier, like in a divorce or the child is divorced, with the other party, the in-laws part of it, would they be able to claim that inheritance or no?
No, because that's your inheritance. That's from you, that's your side of the family.
So like, let's say if my dad were to give me a house and some money, and then in the end, I ended up getting married, things didn't work out, and having a divorce, the other party wouldn't be able to claim that inheritance stuff, correct?
So kya hota hai ki anything that you own, before you're married, before your marriage, that's yours. Right?
No, but I'm speaking about in terms of inheritance from your
Inheritance is
parents.
yours. Inheritance is yours. It wasn't earned together with you and your husband. That's your inheritance that stays out.
Okay. So then that means that they wouldn't be able to fight for that, correct?
No, because that's your side. So your husband didn't work. So it's like, you know, you're married, both of you guys have a job, you built the house together. Yeah, that will be splitted. The 401ks, the bank accounts will be splitted, but whatever is yours, your inheritance, and whatever you got before your marriage is yours.
But let's say after marriage, in the case of, let's say, even after marriage, or during the marriage, or your parents happen to die and they left you their house or their money or whatever, they still
That's
kind of
yours.
claim that, correct?
That is yours.
Okay, just wanted to confirm that. Thank you so much.
That is yours. You're most welcome.
There's a question as to how to avoid the cash when you sell property in India.
I don't know. It's becoming very, very difficult to take the cash. And again, you know, I tell people, you know, you should lower the price to a point where you can get all in a check. So at least you can bring the money to the US. And think about this, if you are not able to do this on your own and you're born, raised in India, you know, how are your kids capable of doing this after you? So cash is very, very difficult now, to be honest with you. I wish there was a way. I wish I had a solution. I would have been making a lot of money from the solution, but there's none. What else, guys? That's it.
You have mentioned about insurance also. Would you like to talk about it? Or?
Yeah, insurance is the whole. Insurance is one of those things which goes to your next generation tax-free, first of all. There is no income taxes, there's no estate taxes on your life insurance. You can buy a simple term policy. It's pretty cheap. You can buy a survivorship policy, which can go to your next generation after something happens to both parents, and your kids don't have to pay tax. I feel like it's one of the best things to leave for your kids. In my opinion, it's one of the cheapest things. Term life might cost $1,000, $2,000, $3,000 a year, and that could be worth $1 million in the worst case scenario. But you know, insurance kind of sells itself, because once you go over people's financial plan, and I don't do sales in a sense that, you know, it's pretty self-explanatory. People usually understand, you know, community is smart enough. They know what they need and what they don't need. But it's a, you know, I think it's a foundation of people's financial plan, in my opinion, and also estate plan, because if you want to leave enough money behind, there's no better way of, you know, no better way, you know, no better way, to be honest with you. Buy a life insurance, leave it for the next generation, and that's it. They will have enough money, and design it in a way then during divorces and things like that, nobody can touch it. Friend,
You indicated that earlier that, like, for example, if when there's a will or there's no will, there's probation, and that can be costly and timely. With probation period, what happens after the probation period?
So probate is basically done in a way that is the time that people who, you know, the person owed money to, that's the time they need to collect it. Once everything is clear, then the money, the properties and assets go to the next generation free and clear. So the reason it takes so long is It's not a complicated process. It's just that, when you get a traffic ticket, right? So you get a court date 5 months in the future. Why is that? Because there's enough people in front of you who got tickets also. Same thing with that. There's only X amount of, judges out there in your county or state or whatever it is, right? So there's a lot of people in front of you, and that's why it takes pretty long. And if people start fighting over the assets, then it takes even longer because some want to sell, some want to keep, and then people are just going back and forth. And 2 questions, one for Manjana and one for Janaji. I have a friend who got nothing from her husband after her divorce, since the condition of divorce was based on she gets nothing. Indian divorces are very nasty, especially when we have assets in India. And the challenge is our women, they don't pay attention to finances. They're very scared to know what's going on. They're very scared of the unknown. So, they don't know how much money is in the retirement accounts, which assets are owned by who, and everything's fine and dandy as long as everybody's getting along. But the minute people get divorced, and as a female, if you don't know these things, I think they will get short end of the stick. That is for sure. And again, it's very unfortunate, but we do see a lot of these cases where husband sent so much money to India, and husband planned everything ahead of time, and wife had no idea that this was going to happen. He sends it to India, buys a property on his parents' name, or gives it to his cousin or whatever, right? And they're investing, and you're trying to fight these things. They sell the RSUs and invest somewhere where you don't even know where the money went. So it's just so crazy. That's why it's a request, that people should, the wives should know where the money is, just in case, in the worst case scenario. And it ends very bad in some cases. So Janaji, your questions regarding long-term care insurance.
That's from Sangeeta Ji.
Okay.
Yeah.
Long-term care is one of the most difficult insurance products out there. The reason for that is I don't know of any company that has guaranteed premiums on long-term care. So even if you purchase it today, there's no guarantee the premiums are going to be the same 10 years later. Very few companies are selling this product because of the uncertainty. Uncertainty is somebody gets a medical condition, they go to a facility, or they're not able to do activities of daily living even when they're home, and the insurance company will have to make the benefit payments. And sometimes unlimited benefits. Companies like Genworth, which was owned by GE, they sold it for pennies on a dollar, and they had to raise the premiums. They got sued, this and that. But if you are young enough to get a good coverage, you should purchase a long-term care. If you don't want to purchase a long-term care, then be prepared that you will have to use some of your personal assets to cover the expenses. But in my opinion, it might not be a bad idea to buy a lot of life insurance and make your kids the beneficiary of that life insurance, so you can utilize or use your assets that you have built up for the long-term care in the worst case scenario, and your kids will get the money from the life insurance. That's one way to plan this properly. But long-term care is pretty expensive. And again, it's a lot of the people think they're never going to die, so they don't purchase life insurance. I don't know how some of them are going to purchase the long-term care policy. So it's tough, but it's very expensive. So Nishtaji, my mother had long-term care with John Hanke. It was a joke. Yeah, nobody reads their documents, to be honest with you. the beauty of this country is that everything is in writing and nobody reads. I wish and pray people start reading the policies that they have purchased, whether it's a life insurance policy, disability policy, or long-term care policy. You know, when I started out my career, I was like 22 years old. And every person that I would go visit, everybody said, oh, I have life insurance. I have a advisor. I have the long-term care. And I'm like, my God, man, like, sari duniya ke paas hai. I have like, I'm not going to have any new clients. So I said, you know what, if there's no clients, at least I can educate myself. So I started collecting policies, and I was very fortunate that people gave me their policies to read. I read the long-term cares, the life insurance policies, the disability policies, the auto policies from pretty much every company out there, because I had nothing to do all day. And I got really good at it. So now for me to read a long-term care or to read a life insurance policy or disability, it takes me like no longer than 5 minutes. So if you have a policy that you don't understand, send it to me. I'll happily read it for you guys. And there's a lot of loopholes that you need to be aware of. It's very difficult to sue life insurance agents because everything is writing, and then you sign these documents that I understand everything, and then it's hard to sue when you have signed everything, right? So don't do that. Read everything if you don't know. And again, it has nothing to do with how educated you are. It's just not your field. There's too many loopholes, right? And call me if you guys need to. Send me an email, documents, and we'll happily talk. Thank you, guys. What else?
We'll give a minute. If there aren't any other questions, we can wrap up with the closing prayer.
And thank you very much for all the kind messages. I really appreciate it, guys.
Thank you, Laddi Jutidi.
It's good for confidence, that's for sure.
And thank you so much.
So much. Yeah.
Oh, wonderful, wonderful. And it's plus your enthusiasm.
Thank you.
Being young, and you're so nice and polite and loving. Thank you so much.
There's no other way in life.
Yeah, that's so nice.
And so much giving, I should definitely say for that.
Thank you.
I'm part of TVKS, and you have been our gold sponsor or platinum sponsor for the last 5-6 years.
Yes.
Truly appreciate that.
Thank you, guys. Thank you. Any other questions, guys? And again, feel free to, I've sent my cell number and my email, guys. So just contact me, no issues at all. And then I'll or text me actually, if you guys want. I'll get back to you guys personally. Thank you.
Okay.
That's it?
I think we can wrap up. If that's fine with you, Ladiji.
Yeah, I'm okay. And I will send you guys some documentation, some reading on these things, and then we'll go from there.
All right. Okay, we'll do the closing prayer. Sit straight.
Sure.
Take your hand above the head and bring it in front of your chest. We'll chant one Omkara followed by the closing prayer. Inhale. Om. Om Sarve Bhavantu Sukhinaha. Sarve Santu Niramaya. Sarve Bhadrani Pashyantu. Ma Kashe Dukha Bhagave. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Slightly rub your hand, palms, bring it in front of your eyes. Just after a couple of blink, open your eyes into your palm. Thank you. Namaste. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
There is no homework for this session, right?
That is correct. Yeah, all the questions you asked, and they are very awesome. That's your homework. And you keep reading, from here you advance.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank
you
very much,
Ladiji. Thank you.
Have a nice week.
Thank you. Bye, guys.
Bye.
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 Namaste. Thank you.
Bye, Maha. Bye, Nagesh. Bye. Manglaji.
Thank
Thank
you,
you.
Jana ji. I
All right.
appreciate you taking care of the class today. You did a
Yeah.
wonderful job.
Thank you. Stop.
Yes.
Thank you, Jenna. Good